I used to think living alone in the house was just an ordinary experience, but it turned into a nightmare I never imagined. It was a cold evening, and the wind whistled through the broken windows. I sat on the couch in the living room, sipping hot tea and scrolling through my phone when I heard a faint sound coming from the corner of the room. "Is someone there?" I asked in a trembling voice, my heart racing. There was no one, just the long shadows of the furniture stretching across the wooden floor. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was my imagination playing tricks. But the sound came back, a little louder this time, like tiny footsteps on the floor. I stood up slowly, drawn toward the corner where the noise came from, and found nothing. A shiver ran down my spine, but I decided to ignore it and return to my tea. An hour later, as I was preparing to sleep, I felt a cold breeze brush past me, and I saw something moving in the corner of my room, a dark shadow, indistinct and eerie. Real fear hit me for the first time. I sat on the bed, watching the shadow gradually approach, and with every move my heart leapt in terror. "Who's there?" I shouted, but there was no answer. The shadow suddenly stopped, and then a vague, faceless shape appeared, a void of darkness. My breath caught, my hands trembled. I turned to call a friend, but my phone slipped from my hand and almost fell, and I heard a faint laugh echoing in the room. I couldn't move. I felt something was watching me, something not human, something that just wanted to scare me. In that moment, I remembered my grandmother's advice. Don't let the shadows overpower you. Turn on the light and tell them to leave. I ran to the lamp and switched it on, and the shadow vanished instantly. I didn't see it again, but I felt slightly relieved, though my heart still raced. I stayed awake all night, watching every movement, listening to every sound. When the sun rose in the morning, I felt safe for the first time in years, but I knew the shadow would return if I left myself alone again.
I was alone in the house on a Friday night. The house was eerily quiet, so silent that my own breathing seemed loud in the room. I sat at my desk, trying to finish some work, while outside the sky was dark and the wind shook the trees. Suddenly, my phone lit up. I hadn't received a single message for hours, and when I looked, there was a strange text I didn't send to myself. It read, "I see you." My hands trembled as I read it, my heart racing. I wasn't expecting anyone, and there was no one in the house. I tried to ignore it and sent a fake text to myself to reassure myself, but the phone rang again. Same message, "I see you." This time, the message seemed to follow me, appearing on my screen before I even touched it. "Who is this?" I whispered in a shaky voice, pacing through the house, searching for any sign of anyone. There was no one, no sound, no movement, just the shadows of the furniture stretching across the wooden floor. As I tried to make sense of what was happening, I noticed that some things in the house weren't where I left them. The cup I put on the small table was gone. The picture on the wall had slipped slightly, as if someone was moving quietly in the background. I sat on the floor trying to calm down, and suddenly I heard faint whispers, unintelligible words coming from upstairs. I tried to ignore it, but the sound grew louder, clearer. "Why do you leave me alone?" I jumped to my feet, running up the stairs, each step echoing down the long hallway. I reached the bedroom, and when I opened the door, No one was there, but a small note lay on the bed, written in strange letters. "I am here." I shivered, a wave of panic washing over me. I realized the house was no longer as I knew it, as if something strange was watching me and moving silently between the walls. I sat on the bed, trying to gather my courage, when suddenly all the lights went out. I was engulfed in total darkness, and the whispers grew louder around me. "I see you. I see you. I see you." I ran out of the room, searching for my phone or anything to bring the light back. When I reached the living room, I saw something I hadn't expected. My shadow on the wall, moving independently, slowly approaching me as if it had a life of its own. I screamed, ran to the lamp, turned it on, and the shadow stopped instantly and disappeared. But my phone began ringing again, the same message, "I see you." I sat on the floor, breathing slowly, realizing I would never be safe in this house alone again. It wasn't just a text, it was a warning from something that lived among the shadows, something invisible to the eye, but always felt, something watching me, knowing exactly when I was alone.
I used to think that staying alone in the house sometimes brought comfort, but that night was completely different. The storm raged outside, rain beating the windows like fast drumming. I sat in the living room, all doors and windows locked tight, listening to the rain rise and fall, until it seemed like it was speaking to me. As I was reading a book on the couch, I suddenly heard footsteps on the stairs. I froze immediately, every hair on my body standing on end. "Who's there?" I whispered, but there was no answer. At first, I thought I was imagining it, or that the sound came from the wind, but my heart wouldn't calm down. Minutes later, I heard the same sound again, but this time slower, heavier, as if someone was crawling toward the room. I couldn't move, feeling my hands heavy, as if the floor were sucking me in. Then a misty figure appeared at the doorway, human-shaped, but without clear features, just a shadow moving slowly. I couldn't scream, couldn't move, felt like time itself had stopped. I tried to breathe calmly, searching for a logical reason for what I was seeing, but found none. Then a deep, calm, and terrifying voice said, "Why do you leave me alone?" Chills ran through my bones, a desperate urge to run, battling my paralyzed body. "Please, no," I whispered shakily, but the shadow came closer, until I could see its long, semi-transparent hand reaching toward me. I suddenly ran for the door, feeling the rain wash over my face as I hurried down the hallway, but each time I neared the door, the shadow appeared again, cutting me off, as if it knew every step I would take. In that moment, I realized the fear wasn't just the shadow, it was the thought that something could slip into your life without you seeing it, watching, mastering your silence, knowing exactly when you were vulnerable. I grabbed the lamp and turned it on. The shadow froze, then vanished. I didn't see it again, but faint footsteps echoed in my ears for hours, as if the house itself was breathing, watching, waiting. With sunrise, I sat on the couch trying to calm myself, realizing that solitude isn't always a refuge.
and that the storm wasn't just rain and wind. It was a warning of something beyond understanding, something that lives in the dark, approaching when you are weak, and disappearing before you realized it was there.